And we are looking live at Michigan State University, the rock there that they have painted Spartans together. It's 1 year since the deadly shooting on campus that took the lives of 3 students and wounded 5 more. And as we go ahead and take a look, that Governor Whitmer has ordered all flags in the state of Michigan to be at half-staff today to mark this anniversary. Well, good afternoon to you, and thanks so much for joining me for the Daily Plus Live. I'm Christy McDonald. You know, we are going to take some time today to mark off the anniversary of the deadly shooting at Michigan State University. We're not going to be reliving it, but really looking forward towards the progress of healing, how Michigan State University continues to try to address safety and security, and of course, always remembering the victims here. It has been a difficult year for everyone involved, everyone who lived through the trauma of that night. And of course, our thoughts go out to the families of Ariel Anderson, Brian Frazier, and Alex Werner. And it really begs the question, you know, how do you mark a day like today? You have to remember it, and you have to think about the impact on the students, which is really diverse. Some are fine heading back to class, of course, in the weeks and months afterwards, but others have really struggled to figure out what normal is again. I spoke to the president of MSU, and that is the student-run group there at Michigan State University, about what today holds, from feelings to safety and security.
Emily, before we get into any questions, you know, we're all thinking about you and, of course, everyone up at Michigan State today. What has this year been like?
See, it's really hard to put into words what this year has been like. I'm one student of 51,000. I'm one Spartan of so many more. That's just something I've come to realize. There's been a lot of different stories from that night, and also a lot of different healing journeys and just feelings afterwards of like, where do we go from next, right? And I think it's really important to acknowledge that, like, this past year, everyone's been in different places, and we will continue to be at different places because that healing journey isn't linear. But what we can do today on this anniversary is stand in support of one another.
Yeah, and I think there can be so much push-pull on how do you remember, how do you mark a day, and describe, I think, some of the things that will be going on today and some of the feelings that people have today.
Yeah, so today we have our day of service from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Hannah Community Center and also at the International Center here on campus. And then this evening from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. we have our nighttime remembrance gathering. And there's just, I can't even pinpoint one specific feeling on campus. It's just a lot of, I've texted a lot of friends today, hey, just want to say I'm sending so much love to you today, thinking of you, right? And just everyone's feeling different things, and I think it's really important that we validate them, and whatever they need to do on this day, they should be able to do to best process their healing journey.
There's got to be so many different ways that people want to either mark what happened, remember the victims. What's an appropriate memorial? Is it, you know, there's got to be a lot of different opinions. What have some of those conversations been like with the administration as well as the, you know, student groups as to how do we mark on campus what happened?
Yeah, I think the main key for how we are remembering on campus is just, I think last year the phrase was Spartan Strong. This year, a year later, the phrase is Spartan Together, right? So we're standing strong of everything that this community went through, because what happened at Michigan State should not have happened. And it's been really difficult, for lack of a better word, to heal and process, because you see those stories in the news and you never think it's going to happen to you until it does. And then there's no blueprint on what do you do when you go through a mass shooting? What do you do when you're barricaded for 4.5 hours? And not knowing when it's going to be over? What do you do when you're texting your loved ones, hey, I don't know if I'm safe or not, right? There's no talking about what happens after. So when we were coming together for marking this anniversary and marking the advocacy and programming going on through this entire week, we wanted to look at how could the Michigan State Spartan community, whether it be here on campus, around the nation, around the globe, could stand in support of their fellow Spartans if they wanted to have that shoulder to cry on, if they needed that hand to pick them up. And just about remembering, like, the strength of the Spartan community to stand together to navigate something that we never should have had to navigate in the first place.
What's been so important about your job is also working with the administration. And I know that in this past year, the difficult decision to reopen Berkey Hall, how are students feeling about where things stand as we start to talk about security on campus and if they feel that they're safe?
I think that's also very important to note that there's not one size definition fits all for safety and security. I hope safety and security continues to improve on this campus. And as for Berkey Hall, some students were ready to go back, some students weren't. But I hope the university continues to listen to those students that are not ready to go back, and accommodations, whether they be for class or other things, continue to be made, and that progress continues to be seen there.
Yeah, and let's talk about some of the progress about the locks that were supposed to be on many doors. What is the student reaction to how fast the university has moved, or maybe not how fast they've moved?
Yeah, so at least for me specifically, once again, I'm one student of 51,000, one Spartan of many more. I think you can recognize the progress that's been made, especially with the locks, with the cameras, with MSU alerts, but acknowledge that there's so much work left to be done on campus. Safety and security is not something that is just a one-stop shop. Once it's all magically fixed, it's done. It's something that needs to constantly be improved. And I hope to continue to see that at Michigan State.
Yeah, and we're also seeing that it's less than 20% of the faculty and students have taken the violence training. What's the reaction there in terms of the lack of engagement?
I think it's also another thing for that. That training was made optional because it can be triggering for our community experienced a lot of trauma on February 13th, and some people are not ready to go through that training yet. So I think it's just really important to acknowledge that as well.
Absolutely. What I guess is when you sit here today, and there's so much that you're, talking about today, what do you want to see? And what do you hope for the university community here now coming in this next year?
I hope they know that there's a fellow Spartan that they can lean on when times like these, they're really tough, and you want to have that support. And I really do think the Spartan community for the past year and even before then has always stood in support of one another when we get through difficult times. This is something you never want to experience, and everyone's trying to do the best they can to make sure they're both taking care of themselves and also standing in support of the broader community, whether it be here in East Lansing or around the world as a Spartan. So I'm hoping to continue to see that sense of community grow. And I'm hoping to just once again have people realize and validate that healing journeys are not linear, neither are the feelings experienced after a trauma like this community experienced on February 13th. And I hope people can begin to realize that everyone is in their own place, and that deserves to be validated.
It's definitely something to remember. And Emily also serves on the memorial committee with the university. They're still in the process of figuring out a place for a permanent memorial on campus. And it is a day of service that she talked about, followed by a vigil tonight. Will Jones is live on campus right now at the place where the rock is that students paint. Will, I'm a MSU alum, so I know that area well. But I have to say, this has got to be a pretty hard assignment to be up there. Some students want to talk, others just really want to shy away from the camera. Give us a sense of what it's like up there on campus right now.
Hi, Christy. We got to campus around 11:30, and we immediately came to the rock where it's painted Spartans together, and we've seen activity throughout the day since we've been here. At least dozens of students have come by here. They have taken time to reflect. Some stood up for 20 minutes or so just staring and thinking. Some sat down, touched the rock, some dropped off flowers. So it's a variety of emotions here, but a lot of people are extremely, extremely sad. Some are reliving that horrible day 1 year ago. We spoke with one student who knew one of the victims, knew Brian Frazier, and he came here to the rock and tears were coming down. And he was trying to wipe them away, trying to regain his composure. But he said he wanted to be here just to reflect on the lives that were lost and also his friends. So this has been extremely tough. And you mentioned this, that some students don't want to talk. They just want to come here and have their emotions, hug each other, and leave. And certainly we understand that, and we are respecting that, Christy.
Yeah, absolutely. No one tells you how to live through a national tragedy like this, and it's got to be very difficult for all those kids on campus there today. Will, thanks so much for the live report. Appreciate it. We know we'll see you for Local 4 News at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock tonight. We talk about grieving and we talk about moving forward, but something that's really important is a university learning from what happened there when it comes to safety and security on campus. Michigan State is still trying to follow through on multiple security measures that have not all been implemented implemented, from locks on doors to an alert system. Karen Drew is following that part of the story. And Karen, it is really important to take a look at when they say we're going to make things safer and more secure. What happened here that we could have done better in this situation?
And you do have to give credit for the fact that MSU did have a third party do an investigation into exactly what went on that day, what was the response. And that third party did come out and basically say the school's response was within line. They acted correctly. There was no major red flags, but then at the same time you say, okay, that was that day. Now what is next? What can we do better? So that's what we're talking about today, not necessarily, quote, picking on Michigan State University, but trying to take a deeper dive in terms of what they could do better. You mentioned door locks. It was interesting the way they said it. They said, well, 82% have new door locks. Well, that's lovely, but that means there are still hundreds of other classrooms that don't. Also, their lockdown system is pretty interesting. The way it's set up right now, in a sense, they need to press 2 different buttons. That may seem not like a big deal, but it is a big deal. When they say lockdown, they want to have a button that controls all of these doors, all of these locks, and have it work simultaneously. So that definitely does need to be improved. They talked about training. Before they said, you know, this active violence training needs to be done for everyone who is, let's say, working on staff, especially those dining halls and the residence halls. That was mandatory. Now the university isn't necessarily saying who is taking it, who isn't. They understood at the same time asking or mandating people to take this training is traumatic. It is hard. It's only been a year. But at the same time, the experts said the training needs to be done. We did some checking and it was about like 18% of faculty and students actually did the training. So there definitely needs to be some improvements. Also the cameras. We did an investigation before this even occurred on their cameras and their surveillance, because at the time they had taken down some cameras and had not replaced them. That was an issue. I did try to get some exact numbers. The university was not willing to share exactly how many are in working condition, but also the way they put them together, do the surveillance, cover the area, and also retaining video. You know, because sometimes certain cameras don't retain it for as long as they need to, and they need to have that. So there are some improvements. Oh, one last thing. They were talking too about, remember that night when there were so many reports of the gunman's over here, the gunman's over there.
Yeah, and there were a lot of different conflicting reports that I think that some people were very critical that slowed down police on campus in terms of getting out alerts on what actually was happening.
And you make a really good point on that, Christy, because everyone was trying to help. There was some self-dispatched officers, but they weren't necessarily controlled by the department. So they were trying to help, but wrong information was getting out. So they said, basically, we do need to take a look. If, heaven forbid, this ever happens or anything like this happens again, when people arrive, where is that one way of communication? Because that obviously caused more chaos. So improvements need to be made. They are working on it. But we took a deep dive into a couple different reports. We're going to have more when you join us tonight at 5:30 on Local 4 News, just to kind of show exactly, because parents and students want to know, exactly where do things stand and what do we need to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Karen, stand here. I'm going to show you just a quick preview of what you were working on so people can see. Take a look.
According to this campus safety and security update from MSU, metal detectors are complete, installed at Spartan Stadium, Munn Ice Arena, and the MSU Tennis Center. They were already in place at Breslin Student Center.
I do believe the school has done everything in their power, and I think they're just continuing to have a good and healthy campus.
The thing I love about MSU is that they keep providing resources for students.
One issue not fixed yet, door locks. 82% are complete, but that means hundreds of classroom doors don't have new locks. And according to the third-party investigation into campus safety, there still needs to be a campus emergency lockdown feature.
Yeah, and Karen, I think it's important too. I mean, we talk about Michigan State and how they're changing things, but you better believe that every other college and university in Michigan, if not across the country, are watching to see, okay, what changes have they made? What do we need to see in our systems? Because if you think this is just a Michigan State issue, if you've got a kid going to college or university, you're wrong. All of these colleges and universities have to have some kind of safety and security stepping up.
They definitely do. They need to take a look at what they've learned, what they changed, and how they can apply it. As we've always said, you can't wait to quote, you are the next victim. And that's where it also comes into parents too, because sometimes that loud voice, that squeaky wheel, when you go to the Board of Regents or you send an email to the president's office, I mean, that does matter. You need to put that on their radar, that there might be some concerns. So we definitely need to make sure that all of our universities are stepping up their security measures.
Absolutely. All right. We look forward to your report today at 5:30. Thanks so much, Karen. Good to see you.